I want you to picture this. You're a former Anbu assassin trained to suppress your emotions. You're conditioned to obey orders without blinking, and you're deprogrammed only because Naruto Uzumaki looked you in the eyes and said, hey man, try being a person once and for all, and will you just stop with all the penis jokes that you're making about me? Now fast forward, that same killer with a bleeding heart reboot is now about to learn that the one person who he swore to protect above all else, his son, might end up being the person that is helping the guy the entire shinobi world thinks murdered Naruto. Yeah, that family dinner, that's about to be awkward, because in Boruto 2 Blue Vortex Chapter 28, Sai, he started to tug at the thread that leads straight back to the Yamanaka clan, the sensory unit, because of Konohamaru's forbidden transmission that took place. And potentially, he's about to find out that his own kid is being the village's secret mole helping Boruto. And that's the question that we're asking in today's newest Naruto Explained video, where your OBC, your original Boruto chief, is breaking down what happens when Sai realizes that Inojin is helping Boruto, why this revelation definitely matters now after this new chapter, and why it does create some of the strongest internal conflict that Sai has ever faced, and also why it is setting up one of the most satisfying character payoffs that we've had for an OG character from Naruto. Let's get into it, but quick reminder, don't forget to check out the chapter review, which will be linked in the description box, and the end credits for those who haven't seen it yet, since we got it out a couple of days after the official release, and my new video on my Everything One Piece Explained channel, where I break down the Zushi no Mi devil fruit and how it ties into the character writing of its user. So we gotta first start with the setup, which is Sai's already suspicious. So chapter 28 dropped a detail that's way more important than I think people realize. Konohamaru's last official check-in was 24 hours ago, but Sai literally saw him make contact just a few minutes ago, which means someone connected Konohamaru to the network, and whoever did it overrode the sensory unit's protocols. The only people who can do that are Yamanakas, and that's where the tension starts to simmer like that ramen on max heat. That's where that tension starts to build, like Naruto waiting for that exact same ramen. And Ino, we know that she used to help Shikamaru speak to Boruto before she finally drew a line in the sand and refused. So she didn't help Konohamaru, then who did? Well, we know the answer, but it's important to remember that the village thinks that Inojin's been doing something very simple. He was visiting Himawari's house. Nothing really suspicious, nothing that would get this kid placed under surveillance. Just a 15-year-old kid with a crush on a 13-year-old. That's nothing big. So once that Sai starts looking into this, Sai is not stupid. Sai is also one of the most intelligent, observant people in Konoha. Sai is the man who once infiltrated Orochimaru's base and did a really good job up until the moment his cover got blown. So once he hears that Konohamaru's last check-in doesn't line up with what he witnessed, he's gonna dig, and that digging is potentially gonna lead him straight home. And that brings me to why Ino might be the first domino that falls. So I do believe Sai confronting Ino is unavoidable. He trusts her. She is the clan head. She is his wife. If anyone would know who touched the sensory unit's communication lines without logging it, it would be her. You have to believe that someone like Ino would have a way to check that, because she is the clan head. But this is where the emotional trap does start to snap down, because there are two possible outcomes. Outcome A, Ino misreads the situation. She thinks that Sai is asking if she helped Boruto, and that might lead to her panicking and revealing that she spoke to Shikamaru, that she was helping Shikamaru and Boruto in the past, that she refused to continue because she didn't believe what Boruto was saying. And she would also say that she was not helping Konohamaru. That single confession definitely eliminates Ino in Sai's mind, even if he wasn't accusing her. But it unintentionally points the finger at one remaining possibility, which is that they start to realize their child is the one that's doing it. Because let's be real for a second, a mother knows. Those magazines that you got under the bed, your mother knows. Those websites that you're visiting on your phone or the computer, your mother knows. She may not have proof, but Ino knows that her son is talented. And she knows based off of her mother's intuition that if somebody's helping, that she cannot rule out that her son may be involved. Either way, Sai is going to have that conversation with a rapidly shrinking suspect list of people in the sensory unit who could help Boruto, and the fact that it might be his son, that's going to cause a big deal. And that also brings me to why Inojin is the perfect secret helper that is helping Boruto. So this entire situation only works because of one critical detail. Inojin's new jutsu, it is undetectable by the Yamanaka clan. Think about what that means. Ino, her son, has a completely new sensory type technique, that he has a transmission technique that bypasses the traditional mind transmission pathway. It avoids every method that the clan would use to track it. It allows him to communicate with people. It allows him to sense people who are suppressing their chakra. Translation, Inojin has created a blind spot in the very system that his family is responsible for maintaining. That is genius writing, because Inojin has unknowingly recreated Sai's own childhood conflict when you think about it. A prodigy expected to follow the rules. A prodigy feeling pressure to conform. A prodigy secretly rebelling for a greater cause, the way that Sai ended up rebelling against Danzo. That is a circle of generational irony that is very beautiful. And that brings me to this most important point, why you should care, because this internal conflict is really good writing. So a talented writer knows that good conflict is not loud. Even in a battle shonen, it's not necessarily about punches and kicks and overpowered abilities. Good conflict is layered. And in this situation, Sai has two devastating layers. A good writer understands how to play internal and external conflict off of each other, where they build off of each other. So the internal conflict inside of Sai. Sai is a man who had been previously brainwashed by Danzo. He was taught that loyalty was greater than individuality. He was also saved by Naruto's compassion. He built a family because Naruto gave him the opportunity to do so by saving him from Danzo. He owes his entire emotional awakening to the man that Boruto is accused of killing. Now picture Sai realizing his wife and his son have been helping the killer of the man who basically saved his life and is responsible for Sai having a family. This is the kind of conflict that tears a character in two, because Sai knows if he reports this information, his wife and his son could be branded as traitors. If he hides it, then he becomes one as well. But Sai is no longer Root. He is no longer Danzo's puppet. And that's the point. And that brings me to the external conflict. Where Sai is wrestling with all of that, you also have to remember that the outside world is collapsing around him figuratively. Kobu is interrogating people. Konoha is hunting for a mole to help Boruto. Konohamaru's case, it has moved off of him, but it's also not potentially over, because that conversation Sai had with the sensor unit saying that Konohamaru looked like he might have been speaking to somebody, that's going to get attention. Shikamaru's leadership, it is under a close microscope right now, and Mitsuki is being interrogated. And Sai, he is expected to assist in that investigation, except the problem is that the moles, they're now his family. A strong writer understands that internal conflict becomes more powerful when the external world tightens the noose around the character, and the noose in question is taking advantage of the internal conflict. Sai is caught in a perfect squeeze. Protect your family and you betray the village. Protect the village and you betray your family. This isn't random drama. This is a character being forced to pick between the life he was conditioned to live and the life that Naruto taught him that he could have. That is elite level conflict. That is something that I am kind of saddened that enough people are not paying attention to, based on what I personally have seen. There's a lot of people who are just sleeping on the Sai subplot, which is a damn shame. And that also brings me to this next point, which is that Sai protecting Inojin is the right character payoff. So ultimately, if Sai discovers that Inojin created a new jutsu, went behind his clan's back, outsmarted the sensory ability in the sensory jutsu that the sensory division use, and secretly has been helping Shikamaru and Boruto. Sai will be hit with a realization that hurts in the best possible storytelling way. Inojin is doing the right thing. Inojin is showing his potential as a shinobi, and he is using that potential and following his gut. As a parent, that's what you want for your child, but that also forces Sai to confront a truth that he is avoiding. He raised a son capable of choosing morality over blind obedience. That is the opposite of what Danzo taught him. That is the opposite of what Root conditioned Sai to believe. That is the opposite of the emotionless weapon that Sai used to be. This is really good payoff because it forces Sai to ask the question, why does Inojin believe in Boruto and Shikamaru this strongly? And that could go back to Sai also having seen Amado's transmission, or rather Amado's communication with Sumire, where he said that their memories are altered. Again, I will always go back to it. We never saw what Sai's take on it was. He merely asked Shikamaru for his thoughts. So if Sai protects Inojin, it means his character is getting a major payoff, because we're seeing further proof that he broke out of Danzo's shadow, that he has the ability to choose family over duty. He has further chosen humanity over conditioning, that Naruto's teachings are still very strong inside of Sai. And that's not just good writing, it's also a completion of Sai's character arc, because Naruto taught Sai how to feel, and now Sai is protecting the boy who is also helping save Naruto's son, even though Sai himself, his memories tell him that that son is supposed to be Kawaki. That is poetic, that is thematic, and that is the airtight narrative symmetry that you need. And this also brings me to this next point, which is why this matters for the long-term storytelling. Sai protecting Inojin doesn't just improve Sai's character, it improves the entire story. It brings the Yamanaka clan back into further relevance. We've already seen them being used, but now we're really going to be seeing it, because you have Ino's fear as a mother, you have Inojin's rebellion, and you have Sai's investigation. All that, it converges into a clan level drama that the series could honestly use. It would also build on moral flaws that are being forced into the open. Once again, Konoha's leadership, it is willing to criminalize compassion. Look no further than the elders doing what they're doing. Once again, someone from outside the power structure, this being Sai, is going to have to take a stand here. And it also recenters Naruto's legacy. Boruto is the misunderstood son. He's the son that everyone forgot. Inojin is helping him. Inojin is Sai's son. Sai is protecting both of them because that's exactly what Naruto taught him. It is a narrative echo. It also builds further tension with Kobu. Kobu is not an enemy. He's just doing his job. But Sai protecting his family puts them in direct ideological conflict, and that sets up a future payoff. Sai outsmarting the sensor unit and outsmarting Kobu. Imagine the irony here. The former Anbu Black Op, the master infiltrator, the emotionalist killer turned into a family man, becoming the one who successfully hides a Yamanaka clan member's illicit transmission. That is peak storytelling, especially when he is doing it and defying the orders of someone like Kobu. And that brings me to this next point, which is that this is the final payoff, and this is why the audience does need the story. Sai's story, his entire character, is truly about identity, but his conflict with Inojin's involvement in helping Boruto is creating the payoff that fans have been waiting for ever since Naruto Shippuden, honestly, in terms of when Shippuden ended. Sai must choose the kind of father he wants to be, the kind of man he wants to be. His choices, if Sai turns in Inojin, he reverts back to being that root Anbu member. He breaks his family, he betrays Naruto's teachings. If Sai protects Inojin, he further confirms that he is no longer controlled by Danzo's ideology. He also completes his emotional evolution. He shows the audience that he truly internalized Naruto's compassion, and he becomes one of the most important moral anchors in Boruto to Blue Vortex. That is a very rich and powerful and emotionally mature level of writing. Sai thinks he's investigating a mole, when in truth, he's actually investigating himself symbolically, because this storyline isn't just about who connected Konohamaru without permission. It's about who Sai chooses to be when everything that he's built has been put on the line. A father, a soldier, a weapon, a protector, a husband. What happens when that artist who is trained to kill must now protect the most important masterpiece of his life, his own family, from the very system that once owned him? That is the moment where Sai becomes more than a character. That is the moment where Sai becomes a story. Obviously, if you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing, clicking here on the left to check out the chapter review, or click here on the right for that One Piece video that I talked about earlier.